Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show today. We have a great episode. Our guest is Dr. Anna Marie Frank. She is a doctor of traditional naturopathy and Ph.D. in natural medicine. She is the founder of Happy Whole You Wellness Centers and creator of a unique brain nutraceutical line. Overcoming personal struggles with depression and learning difficulties, she is committed to advancing brain health. Anna Maria is the author of Stop Bullying Yourself, guiding readers toward improved health, wealth, and happiness, embodying her holistic and continuous learning approach to well-being. We talked about so many things in this episode. A lot of what I just mentioned, her area of expertise is so vast, and we talked about a lot of things that are really important and that I love talking about, like brain health. Her story of how she came to find this work in the first place, it started with her. We talked about depression, mindset shifts, and just the brain health piece was really important to me, and there was a lot of great takeaways when it comes to what we can do for our health of our brain. This is an area of expertise for her. I absolutely love this one. Make sure to send this episode to a friend if you think they could use this information. And thank you to everyone who has left a review for our show. We love to hear your feedback, so please leave one for us if you haven't yet. And thank you so much in advance. Enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today we have Anna Marie Frank, and I'm so honored to have you on our show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so excited. We have some really interesting things to talk about today. But before we do, I was wondering if you could just briefly introduce yourself and tell us about what you do, and then we can go from there.
Yes. I am the owner and founder of a holistic wellness company called Happy Whole You. We work on increasing people's brain function, decreasing their body inflammation, and building a strong foundation of health. We do have a brick and mortar, so we combine high tech with old school Chinese medicine, holistic health modalities to do that. And then we always go back to the brain and our mindset and brain health and how the brain influences our body. And so that's what I do. I'm a doctor of traditional naturopathy. I have my Ph.D. in holistic medicine. And I'm old school. I love to dive into herbs and energy and, these different modalities that have been around for centuries that are kind of lost art.
I'm very excited. I'm very interested in all of that as well. And I think a lot of times I've been through like a health journey of my own. And a lot of times when you start, where we are at with Western medicine, it is, you can kind of hit like roadblocks and you just don't know where to turn. And so you think, okay, I'm going to try something new, but it's not new at all. It's been around for so long. And it's just new to us because it's not something that we've been exposed to. And I love your take on, or just if you could give us some information about that, because it's like, when did that change? These things have been around for so many years, and yet in the past, 100 years, things have really changed. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll give you kind of like a high level overview. I do have a podcast that it's called, I think I titled it How Holistic Health Was Destroyed or Killed in the United States. And so I take everybody through a timeline, a little more in depth, but ultimately it was around 1890 to about 1920-ish when our universities at the time were actually called colleges. And you would go there to be a doctor and you would learn about herbs and medicinal practices to, support your patients. And there was this thing called the Flexner Report, where it was the Rockefellers and the Carnegie families. They paid this guy, last name Flexner, to literally go around to all these colleges and offer them a certain amount of money to do quote unquote research. And what was happening is they were simultaneously investing in the petrochemical industry so we could make synthetic drugs, and they wanted to quote unquote mainstream medicine. And so this is where they started to pull out Native American practices, Chinese medicine, Northern European practices out of the curriculum and started to make it more uh, drugs, pharmaceuticals, surgeries, things like that. So my training is non-medical, and everything I do is holistic, not breaking the skin, using natural things provided by the earth to essentially help the body get back into homeostasis so it can heal itself.
Oh, I love that. I love that story. I feel like there's a little bit of a shift in our culture right now, and people are like kind of
100%.
they're finding out about this. People are talking about it for the first time.
Yes.
If you're new to it, if you've been around a little bit, we've known about this, but it feels
Yeah.
good to have more awareness about this, because it's like
Right.
it's real, and it's a problem.
Yeah.
So did you find yourself finding this work because of a personal
Oh
health
yeah.
journey? Like, tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was taught, you don't feel good, you go to the doctor, they give you medicine, you go home and you take it. I mean, that's what you did. My parents are baby boomers, and so they were in that generation of, vaccines and pharmaceuticals and all that. And I always like to say, don't get me wrong, Western medicine has come a long way, like with surgery, saving lives. They do a fantastic job at that. But in terms of like preventative care, I don't believe Western medicine does preventative care. I believe they have early detection, but not preventative care. And then also keeping people well. Our first line of defense should not be a pharmaceutical. Now, my run in that became life altering was in my early 20s. I struggled with my mental health. I struggled with depression, and really for no apparent reason. I got good grades in school. I was an athlete. My parents were married. I had a roof over my head. But nevertheless, I did not feel good inside with myself. And I thought, once I graduate high school, this will go away. And I wouldn't talk about it. Like when I went to school, it wasn't like you would say, oh, I'm depressed, or oh, I have anxiety, or any of that. That wasn't like normal. And then I went to college and I thought, oh, once I go to college, I'll be better, right? Change of scenery, reinvent yourself. I find myself in college and my mental health is getting worse and worse. Of course, I'm not eating great. I'm working my tail off, trying to study, just all the college life stuff. And so then I was like, oh, once I get a job, I'm going to move. I moved across the country. I thought, now I'm going to reinvent myself. Now I'll be happy. And then when that happened, I found myself in the first year of my career, I had health insurance. So I thought, well, here I go. I get to go to the doctor. I'm going to tell them all my problems and what's wrong with me, and then they're going to fix me. And so I went and saw a psychiatrist. He gave me 3 mind altering medications at 22, 23 years old. Like a good student, I went and I started taking them, and I started to progressively get worse and worse. I kept going back to the doctor to change my meds, and nothing was working. And so I'll never forget the moment that changed everything within me. I was in the doctor's office and I was already annoyed and upset because I had been sitting there for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, however long it was. I felt like the walls were caving in on me. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, okay, everybody here is mental. Don't they know to like get us in our appointment? Like it's just, it wasn't even a nice, like inviting waiting room. It was just like depressing. And I go into his office and he gets a call and he opens his flip phone and he answers it right in the middle of asking me all these questions. Like he's like, do you want to kill yourself? Do you want to hurt other people? Do you see things? Blah, blah, blah. There's like this list of questions they ask. And I'm answering, these questions. Every time I go in, he asks me the same questions. And then like he just answers the phone, has a full conversation. I'm like sitting there. I am so pissed at this point. I'm like, I'm not even a human. I'm just like, he gets off the phone, goes right back to those questions. And at that moment, I was like so upset. I stood up and I said, like, I gotta go. Like, I have to leave. And he pulled out of my chart 3 medications he had already written for me before even seeing me. He had already written them to already fill them. And I was there to tell him that my medications weren't working and we needed to make a change.
Oh.
And I remember I took them and I walked out of there and I threw them away. And there was this little light inside of me. Thank God for it, because I know not everybody has this, but I was like, you are the only person that can make you happy. And I remember walking outside. I still remember this like it was yesterday. And it was like the trees were green for the first time. The sky was blue for the first time. I was like, it's almost like I was able to take my power back. And of course, I was so scared. My heart was beating so fast because it was like defying authority. You know, who do I think I am talking to a doctor this way? And that moment was like, you are the only person that can change your life. And then that's when I set forth on a journey to essentially find a way to feel better and to be better from the inside out. And I stopped looking for things outside of me to start fixing me. And I started to work on myself from the inside. And that was one run-in that I've had, but I've had a few since with giving birth and stuff like that, but we won't get into all that. So, but that was a very defining moment in my life.
It's interesting because I actually was going to school for I have a bachelor's in psychology, and while I was getting my degree, I was working in a psychiatrist's office. And
Mm,
so I saw the behind the scenes of what you're talking about, and it really affected me to the point of I'm like, this is really not what I envisioned helping people looks like. And I
mm,
understand, that we had a lot of severe people, like very, very severe, when it
yeah,
comes to psychiatric disorders and things like that. But I didn't feel a lot of empathy from the doctors to their patients, and it was a very
hmm,
transactional experience. And like
very transactional.
it would be like they'd come in, and after waiting an hour in the waiting
Yeah,
room,
yeah. Don't make
they
crazy people wait. Don't
it
make us
was
wait.
like our wait times were crazy, and this was a very, very, very busy practice in like downtown Long Beach,
Hmm,
so it was a very busy
hmm,
place. But I remember like them waiting for a really long time, and they would go in and come back out 5 minutes later with a prescription or their medicine. And I was just like it really like was very eye-opening for me, especially because I was like, I imagine it to be more like, it's a helping profession, and really getting to make sure these people are okay.
yeah.
Did you find that when you had that moment, that sort of epiphany, did you find that there were physical health issues? You did mention like your diet wasn't great.
Yeah.
Was there things that you think
Yes.
contributed to that?
Oh my God, yeah, and that's the other thing is I've learned about this a long time ago. I did a certification through the Dr. Amen Clinic, so I'm a certified brain health specialist, and I learned so much through that course. And I never knew that you're not supposed to prescribe mind altering medications until you've ruled out any other health issues, physical health issues, right? And I see people every day that when we work on their foundations of health, their anxiety goes away, their depression goes away, they're not sleeping, like their insomnia goes away, their hormones start to rebalance, like all these things start to happen. And the other aspect is, our brain doesn't even fully develop till we're around 25. And I was 22, 23. So I didn't even have a fully developed brain. And I was getting prescribed medication to alter my brain chemistry that doctors can't even measure, by the way, right? Like we don't even know how to measure brain chemistry. So to say someone's brain chemistry is out of whack, that's just like a saying. We don't know how to essentially measure brain chemistry. And yes, so then we go to what were going on with my foundations of health. Well, I wasn't sleeping well. I was highly stressed. I was financially stressed. I had bad relationships. I was not eating really good food, unless you call chips and salsa like, healthy food. And I was eating that all the time because it was cheap and it's what I was eating. um, yeah, my whole perception of life was very skewed. And what we do know to be true in science is that every thought we have, every word we speak carries a vibrational frequency that will influence your biochemical makeup. So within 150 to 500 milliseconds, if we shift a thought alone, we will shift how we are feeling. And people allow the outside world to influence how they feel all the time when ultimately their brain is the strongest pharmacy on planet Earth and they get to choose what they want to think. And I get that it's not always easy to override the system, because when I stepped out of that office and I set forth on my journey to heal myself, I viewed my brain as a computer. And I thought, well, if we can rewire a computer, I should be able to rewire my brain. And so that's what I essentially started to do. I started to silence that voice inside my mind that was telling me, you're not good enough, things aren't available to you, people don't like you, you're never going to make it. Like that voice, I started to say, oh, I see you, I recognize you, I don't believe you, you can step to the side, because who I am at my core soul level is not that voice. It's the one that's witnessing that voice. And so if I quit giving that voice power, it's like a child that keeps throwing fits and you stop giving it attention, it starts to slowly go away. And it makes it a lot easier for it to slowly go away when you're sleeping, when you're eating well, when you're moving your body as something beautiful to do, versus I used exercise as a punishment because I ate something, right? So there's all of these things that contribute to our mental health. And people forget our brain is only 2% of our body, but yet it utilizes 20 to 25% of all the nutrients, all the oxygen, all the energy that our body has. So it's an energy sucker. So if you eat a bad meal, the first part of the body that's going to be impacted by it in a negative way is going to be your brain. And we don't think about that. We don't really think too much about that.
That's a good statistic. I didn't know that about the brain, how much energy it's utilizing. And it's funny that you talk about the 20s. Like you couldn't pay me to go back to my 20s. It
Right?
I like literally I was a very, very unhealthy person at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like you, like I really relate to what you're saying. I was so good about going to the doctor. I was so good. Like anytime I was sick, I was at the urgent care, I was getting antibiotics. I was ruining my gut. Like
Yeah.
it took me a really long time to recover from a lot of the things that I did. I also stayed up late. I drank beer. Like I
Was on birth control. I don't know
birth
about you, but I
control.
was.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
I was on birth control for a decade and I just did all the things that I thought was right. Well, not the
Mm-hmm.
beer drinking, but I
Yeah.
did stay up late. I hung out with, I remember when my husband and I first met, we would hang out after work and we'd stay up late. And I remember every morning
Yeah.
I'd wake up like, woo, okay.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't fun. And it was a lot of that. Like, it is hard to clear that chatter when you're
Mm-hmm.
tired and you're just lacking
Yeah.
energy, your stomach hurts,
Totally.
you're having digestive issues. But I want to talk more about the brain because I feel like again, like we're talking a little bit more about the brain now than we used to.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be like, do this for your heart health and things like
Yeah.
that. But oh my gosh, like tell us, the brain is so important. We need to be doing things for our brain health. So tell us what we need
Yeah.
to be doing and like why is that so important?
Yes. Well, sleep is so important and people really discount it. I used to tell myself, "Oh, I could sleep 4 to 5 hours and wake up and go run in the morning and I'll be fine." Like I'm like I can get away with a less sleep. Like
Yeah.
I'm one of those people. That's BS. I just was telling myself that. Like you need 7 to 8 hours of good quality sleep every single night for sure. And then eating, like I eat blueberries almost every day in my life, or blackberries, some type of berries, fruits and vegetables. Those are so neuroprotective. I actually even formulated my own line of nutraceuticals. Specifically, one of them is neuroprotective for the brain. So I take that every single day to help with like inflammation, things like that. Because when your inflammation goes up, your brain gets affected immediately, and you can have brain fog and just it's not good. So we need to keep our inflammation levels down. So fruits and vegetables are ideal. Also, proteins are really important. So proteins are made up of amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of our life. The number one abundant thing in the body is water, so we must stay hydrated. The second most abundant thing in the body are amino acids. These are proteins. And so I was finding myself when I was younger, I would run and I was just like eating carbs. Like I wasn't getting the protein in. And yeah, I was eating fruits and vegetables, but it was like mostly just like carbs, granola bars, like quick things to grab and go. And so I wasn't getting enough protein. Even to this day, I'm like, my nemesis is protein. Like I know in my 40s, I need to be having more protein. And it is like a constant thing for me to get the protein in. So fruits and vegetables and protein, and then healthy fats. I mean, literally, I grew up in an era where fat was demonized. And so it was like, oh, you want, low fat diet, which increases sugar, increases carbs, which is horrible. It's the opposite of what we need. And so now it's like the other day I went home and I cut off like a fourth of an onion and then a little bit of garlic. And then I got out 2 avocados, smashed that up, and then I like ate that. And back in the day, I would have never ate 2 avocados because, oh my gosh, there's so much fat and so much calories. And then, if you can eat nuts and seeds and you're not impacted by them, some people are sensitive to them, eating those as well. So my outlook on food is very different than what it used to be. I used to think every calorie, like I used to count calories and I didn't want fat. And it's like the total opposite of what I believe we should do. And then the biggest thing to protect your brain is to shift the lens in which you see the world. And one really, really powerful way when we are being challenged in life, because we'll always have challenges. Life is not supposed to be easy, but it gets easier when you have a healthier brain and a healthier mindset. But the question I propose for everyone to ask themselves when they're in a challenging situation is to ask yourself, what if this wasn't true? Because what happens when you ask yourself that question? We have this thing called the limbic system in the brain, this amygdala that's going crazy, and it puts us in this fight or flight, and we're worried. We're worried about our kids. We're driving the car and thinking, what if a bad accident happened? Or, you know, your kid calls and says, I'm going to go do this. Is that okay? And you're like, yeah. And then in your brain, you go to like the worst case scenario. You know what I mean? Like this is like natural thing because our brain does a good job of trying to protect us. So you have to think of like the worst case scenario. That way you're prepared. But if you ask yourself, what if this wasn't true? It takes you from that emotional brain state and puts you in your prefrontal cortex, which is your executive function thinking. And it allows you to step outside of the problem and view it from a different way and view it from a different lens. So it's like, okay, if I didn't have this problem right now, oh, I'd be calmer. Oh, I would actually probably do this. And I could do that because it wasn't happening. And then it puts this sense of calm. And then your brain starts to figure out, well, how can I make that happen? Because whatever you tell your brain will filter the world and do everything it can to validate what you're telling it. So that can work for you or that can work against you. So if you're telling the world, like, I am strong, I am powerful, I love my life, every day is a Friday to me, my kids are healthy and happy, like your brain is going to filter the world to see that. And then when something challenging comes along, as it's going to, because it builds resistance in, or like, it builds you up, it helps you grow. Um, you just look at it from a way of like, oh, okay, this happened, but you can better able handle it, like, so it's just you're going to go through challenging times and it's going to feel way more challenging when you're not doing well inside.
Yeah, this is so important. I feel like this is life changing when you are able to like you said, separate the voice from who you are, because
Mm-hmm.
there's just so much chatter. And then I don't know if you've heard of Katie Byron, but she says a lot of her teachings are a lot of what you're saying, which is just you're questioning your thoughts. We get all of
Yeah.
these thoughts and we just think, oh, that's true. But we never question them. Like, wait, what if that
Yeah.
isn't true? Like, this is just like
Right.
this nonstop chatter that we're getting, and it's not helpful. And then, like you said, you're to the point now where you've trained yourself to ask these other questions that are more serving you. They're more
Mm-hmm.
helpful. They're not going to get you into a worse state of mind. That's like
Right.
life changing when you can start looking at the world like that. I know it takes practice, especially if
Mm-hmm.
you're in a bad spot. Like, for sure, it's hard
Yeah.
to go there sometimes, but it's like crazy how effective it can
Yeah.
be when you can do it. I love it. I love that stuff so
Yeah.
much. So as far as like mindset, I know that is what we've been talking about and how it's really like for getting healthy. You say it's like
Mm-hmm.
one of the most important things as
Yeah.
far as like getting on track. And I think is that also not just like questioning our thoughts and like putting in the thoughts that we want, that serve us, that help us with our goals, but also other things like, just your health, or if you're in a bad spot, like how else can people start with a healthier mindset?
Yeah. So do what you say you're going to do.
Mm.
That's called integrity. Most people, oh, I'm going to start on Monday. Oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm going to start saving my money. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to go, see what classes I could get into. I'm going to train for a 5K. I'm going to take a paint class at paint night with some of my girlfriends. But you're not doing these things. Like you say you're going to do these things. You have to do what you say you're going to do. And the moment you start doing the very things that you say you're going to do, the big things and the small things, you start to build confidence when you follow through on that. And the worst thing we could do is say we're going to do something and not do it because we can't lie to ourselves. That's how people get in this, oh, I've tried this diet, I've
Mhm.
tried this, I can't lose weight, I can't lose weight, I can't lose weight. It's not that you can't lose weight. Most often, it's because you're not following through on what you said you're going to do. You're cheating here, you're cheating there, you're compromising because your brain is telling you, I don't know, that you deserve it or whatever. But it's like pick your hard, right? It's hard for some people to eat healthy. And it's also hard to be overweight and not be able to get up and off the floor with your kids and play with them or your grandkids, right? It's hard to save your money and be disciplined with your finances to get ahead. And it's also hard to be broke. So you get to pick your hard in life. And so a lot of people, though, aren't doing the hard things. I just posted on my Instagram the other day about I went to this park kind of by us, and there's this like hill. It's not even a hill. It's literally like it goes almost straight up. And it's not like I want to walk up that hill. Like you kind of have to bear crawl it. It's like it takes you probably about 4 or 5 minutes to get to the top. And you feel like you want to throw up when you get to the top. Your heart's beating really fast. Your legs are burning. It's like, I don't really want to do that. But then I think about how will I feel after. And then I invite somebody else to meet me. So then I can't not do it. And then I show up. And then it's like, okay, now that I did that, that builds confidence. And when I first started going up that hill each week, I like had to stop 2 or 3 times. And now I'm going up the hill and it's still kicking my butt, but I'm not stopping. That builds confidence, right? We have to choose to do hard things physically, mentally, financially, even in our relationships, owning up to something, saying, I'm sorry, right? Even if, oh, it was their fault though, whatever. Say you're sorry that things turned out the way they did, right? Like, so we choose to not do the hard things anymore. And I think we live in a culture that is really pushing the easy way. And the easy way is actually not going to be easy. You're going to pay for it at some point, right? It's the law of physics. For every action, there is a reaction. So if you think you're getting away with something right now that doesn't sit well with you and you really probably shouldn't be doing it, but you keep kind of getting away with it, you keep doing it, the law of physics will say this is going to come back at you and it's going to feel even worse, right? So you might as well choose the right thing now because then even more right things and good things are going to come your way, which is also, the law of abundance.
Oh, I love that answer. I love, it's committing to yourself, and how that is sometimes harder. Like it's easier to cancel on ourselves than like a friend or our
Mm-hmm.
kids. It's easier to keep commitments, but it is so true when you keep those commitments to yourself, like the reward is really good and you start to trust yourself, and
Yeah.
it totally builds confidence. I love that. And it's so important to do.
But
Um
the reaction though, if you keep putting them before you and like you're telling yourself, oh, I'm such a great person, I'm putting everyone before myself, the reaction of that is you're going to grow bitter, you're going to grow resentful, and you're going to end up burning out and crying in your closet that nobody does anything for you and that you feel so depleted,
mm,
right? So it's again, we will pay for it eventually. So it's like, again, pick your hard and pick the things. Like for me, I started to pick my hard in my early 20s and I started to do things in my 20s that felt hard. I didn't go on the spring breaks. I didn't travel a ton in my 20s. I saved my money. I did all these things. And now I fast forward and I'm in my 40s. I am very financially stable. I can choose to go on a trip and do whatever the heck I want. And it's interesting because now I'm looking around, I'm like, what? You're broke? You can't go? What? Like that's the thing. You got to pick your heart because eventually you will end up paying for it. And it's that compound effect. I remember reading this book by Darren Hardy called The Compound Effect. And that I was already kind of doing that actually in high school when it came to sports. I would be, it would be basketball and I'd be shooting baskets and having practice for 2 hours. And then I thought to myself, well, if everybody else is practicing for 2 hours, what if I stayed after for like another 30 minutes or another hour every day? I would get that much better than everybody else. Right. And then, so it's that compound effect. And I read that book and it was a great book many years ago, but it's all those little things that compound into huge things into our lives.
Yeah, and I feel like those are the things that it's tricky because a lot of times it'll be easy to say, well, just this one time isn't going to matter. I
Yeah.
don't need to eat perfectly today. It's just one day. But that does
Hmm.
add up. I know that is that's so true. So when you have a physical place that you see clients,
Hmm.
what is one of the biggest things that people come in to see you for? Like what's the biggest issue that they're having?
Oh gosh. Well, of course, I think our mindset is all of our issues.
Yes.
So we
Even
definitely
if you
have that.
don't know
But
it.
even if you don't know it, mostly anxiety, depression, hormones, and sleep.
Okay.
And
Okay.
all of those tie in together. And so even the people I work with remotely, those are the issues that I see quite often. If I have somebody come to me and say, oh, I want to lose weight, I always tell them I'm not the person for you. Weight loss is a side effect of what I do
Yeah.
with people. But if you're only focused on the weight loss, that weight is representing something. That weight is a protection mechanism of something that you're not dealing with, something you're hiding, something deeper that's going on. And so I like to go to the root issues of why people are essentially things are misfiring and restore those foundations of health and then go from there. But I would say those are the things that mostly come up with people I work with.
And so do you start at one area, or I mean other than mindset, obviously that's your key, that's something that's key, but do you also recommend like the dietary and movement and
Oh
all of
yeah.
that?
Yeah. So when people come in, like if they do an initial intake with me, I I can do this in person or remotely.
Okay.
So we figure out, I'll look at their eyes. They'll send me photos of their eyes if it's remote or in person. I look at their eyes. I look at their tongue. I look at their face. I look at their fingernails. I look at their ears. I see what physical observations is the body telling us. The body's been trying to tell us something for a long time. It's just, are we able to read what the body's telling us? And in this country, no, that's a lost art. And so I do a facial analysis, the eye analysis, the tongue, and all of that. And then I also listen to the way that they structure sentences, the way they're speaking, their tone of voice. All of this is giving me information. And then I also do biofeedback scan as well. And again, I can do this in person or remotely, but I test for food sensitivities, hormones. I'll scan the brain, I'll scan the digestive system, just really figure out what's going on with their foundations of health. From there, I'll recommend, foods to pick up at the health food store that maybe these foods you should be eating every day. Foods that maybe you should avoid, like these are foods you're testing sensitive to. Let's cut them out for 30 days or minimize the intake of them for 30 days and see how that goes. I might recommend certain nutraceuticals, recommend different energy routines that they do at home to really work on their chakras, their meridians, their biofield. People forget if we go inside every single cell until we can't go any further, the only thing that's left is energy. So to not address the energetics of the human body, I believe we miss a whole aspect of healing. And then I give them an affirmation that they're to say every day out loud to themselves. And then certain exercises based on their brain type. So, like if somebody is struggling with anxiety, they should not be doing high intensity interval training. Like they should not be doing that. So we figure out, what brain type are they exhibiting, and go with the exercise that would be best for them. So I have like a whole gamut. So when I'm done, my first session with people takes 2 hours. When I'm done with that, I go over everything with them, and then they know, like, showing up in the world, these are the things that can benefit me most, and hopefully they step into those things.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. I mean, affirmations too. Like this is I'm so interested in all of this. I think it's so powerful. It's funny what you were saying about the food too earlier when you were saying we're obviously from this around the same time of, when we grew up, but not having any fat was
Yeah.
so important. And like back then I didn't, we didn't know that that just meant the sugar was higher.
Right.
And I remember like in college even I would eat fat free. Like
Uh-huh.
if it was fat
Yes.
free, I would eat it, but that meant I was having, there's not really fat in a bagel. So I'd have a bagel, I'd have noodles for lunch, and I'd have
Yeah.
like a baked
Yeah.
potato with no butter on it for dinner. And I remember just thinking, like, why am I gaining weight? This is so strange. I'm not eating any
Uh-huh.
fat and
Mm-hmm.
zero protein. I mean, I barely ate
Yeah.
protein. Like I don't remember that being part of my diet at all. I didn't eat a lot of meat and just protein in general. And like I was
Mm-hmm.
studying, like you need fat.
I know, girl. I know. I feel like my brain works so much better now in my 40s.
Yeah.
I know it does than it did in my 20s. But yeah, I was the same exact way. And then you get fat-free cream cheese for your bagel.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything was fat free. And I remember
Yeah.
just like it was my two best friends were my roommates and they worked at a pizza place. And they literally came home with free food, and I was so poor back then, and they would come home with like pizzas and I'd be like, I can't eat that. And that would have been so much better
Uh-huh.
than what I
Uh-huh.
was eating. At least there was
Yes.
fat and protein on the pizza, and like it would have been
Yes.
just healthier for my brain. And it's like
Yes.
and then only cardio. I
Yeah.
ran, I did the stair
Yes.
stepper, no weights. I didn't want to
The
bulk up.
elliptical.
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah.
I would run at night in Long Beach because
Uh-huh.
I was crazy.
Yeah.
And then I was gaining weight.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was not my goal. Like I wanted to be thinner. So yeah, it's so funny how we know so much more now, and we know so much more about what our brains need and how we should even be paying attention to that in the first place. Like I feel like that was never something that was important, and it was never something that was like talked about as much. So
Yeah.
I just think
Yeah.
it's so interesting. So you have you do so much, by the way. I'm like, wow. You have a book, you have supplements. You also like I want to tell people about your book
Yeah.
and your a little bit more about your supplements, and then we can share where to find you if somebody wants to work
Yeah.
with you.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So I wrote a book. It's called Stop Bullying Yourself. And you can get it on Audible. I'll read it to you, or you can get it on our website, happywholeyou.com. I wrote that book. It's a personal growth book. I essentially wrote it for my kids. It started off as a Google document. And I just thought, I struggled with depression for many years, and I was able to like develop a brain that I'm no longer depressed. And I don't know, was my depression because I used to get picked on, or was this because something, things that happened to me, or was this just like the brain I was dealt? And so either way, I wanted my children to be able to read something with like literally the things that I did and the ways I was shifting my thinking to live a better, happier, healthier life. And so I just share those stories in that book with other people, and it's things that they can totally do. So that's my book. And then, yeah, I started to formulate my own supplements because what I was finding is I would work with people, and there's these different materials or ingredients that are very beneficial for like people that struggle with anxiousness, or people that struggle with depression, or people that are having a lot of brain fog. And as I would send people to the health food store, I'd like have a list of like 5 different bottles of whatever for them to pick up because they needed the raw material in each of those. And I'm like, why has nobody literally formulated these in one bottle? And so I started to feel like, well, why not me? So then I started to like formulate and figure out these different formulas to help people. So like one of our best-selling products is called Calm You.
Mm.
And Calm You is literally anyone that is anxious, kind of irritable, just like, it's, you may, even if you have anxiety attacks, definitely start taking Calm You. But just that little layer of yuck that is always there. Calm You is so good. And I always say play with a dosage. So you could take like 2 in the morning, 2 at night, for a period of time. And then eventually I wean people off. It's not like you don't get addicted to these are natural ingredients. But like, I don't believe supplementation is something that you take always and forever. Now, that's not great for my brand. That's not great for me who sells supplements, but ultimately we kind of have to recalibrate, right? And so sometimes there's these deficiencies in the body that are impacting how you're feeling. So Calm You is so great at taking that layer of yuck just off, throwing it to the side. And then another one I formulated was Happy You, because I didn't know. So this is very interesting to me because I was the person in my early 20s that was put on an antidepressant. I had postpartum depression, and the only thing they wanted to offer me was an antidepressant. And I didn't learn until a few years ago that your body needs vitamin B6 and the amino acid tryptophan to even begin to make serotonin in the gut.
Mm.
So there's these raw materials that if your body doesn't even have them, you are going to tend to have more low mood and more episodes. So Happy You is a formulation of all these raw materials. So at least you have the raw materials for your body to pull from to be able to create serotonin, which is our mood stabilizing hormone. And then Bright You is that neuroprotective one I talked about earlier. That was actually the first one I formulated because I literally looked at my countertop also. And I'm like, okay, I'm sending all these people to the store. I literally have 7 bottles of things I'm taking for anti-aging, neuroprotective. And I'm like literally, like, what if this was just one bottle? Like, this would be great. And then Bright You was born. And then since then I've formulated quite a few others. We have a liquid multi and some other formulas online at happywholeyou.com. You can get them.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to learn more about these. I really I've always struggled with a little bit of anxiety.
Mm,
And that's something that I've tried to work on just like throughout the years. And it's like I've been the same way. Like back in my 20s, I was struggling and I was feeling depressed, and I did do the pharmaceuticals for a little bit, and
mm-hmm.
then I was like, no, I don't like the way
Yeah,
this makes me
yeah,
feel. But
yeah.
it's so nice to know that there are so many other options. And there are real powerful things that we can do with our mindset that takes
Mm-hmm.
some practice. It's not like an easy fix. I know a lot of people they don't like that. They want
Yeah,
to go to the doctor and get the pill because
yeah,
don't you think, I mean, we've just been trained to think like
yeah.
that.
Well, yeah, and some people they feel so bad, as I did.
Yeah,
I was willing to do anything,
for sure. Me too.
and so it's like, yeah, give me a pill. I'm willing to do anything. But again, it goes back to education.
Yeah.
When we know better, we can do better. When we know better, we have a responsibility to do better. And it took me getting educated to understand that taking an antidepressant doesn't increase serotonin in the body. It's going to just like try to capture the serotonin that you have, and hopefully you feel a little better with that. Right. So I think, in my opinion, pharmaceuticals for mental health should be the very last 1% that we use. I used to say 5%, and now I'm like 1%. Yeah, there are certain people that, okay, yeah, we need to medicate them or they're going to medicate themselves. But literally, for the majority of people,
Mm.
especially women, they are put on antidepressants at an alarming rate. Our children are being put on pharmaceutical drugs at an alarming rate, and they don't even have a fully developed brain. Like, this is not okay. And we have totally normalized this. This is messed up, like, really messed up. And there are so many other options. And just because your insurance doesn't cover it doesn't mean that it doesn't work nor you should do it. right? So that's the other misconception. It's like, oh, well, my insurance doesn't cover. It's like I pay $1,500 a month for my family to have health insurance because we have to, or we'll be fined, and all the things, and we don't even use it, right? Like my doctor that I use, he's an ND, and I'll go to him. Like, actually, I'm going to him later today, and he's going to give me a vitamin C infusion, and like everything I do is like it's paid out of pocket. It's just, you don't want to get me started. It's criminal. It's a monopoly.
Yeah.
It's not okay. And I just think anytime, our government says, here, this is free, or do this and this will cost you less, I say, warning, why is this happening? I ask a lot of questions. It doesn't feel right.
That's why I get really frustrated too. It's like a lot of the things that I've done for my health have not been paid for by my insurance. And
No.
I would, like when you talked about it before, like preventative care, that's preventative care. Like, getting your vitamin C shots and doing things like that to stay healthy, be even more, optimally healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not something that our insurance is going to cover. And it's like, it is frustrating. My husband and I laugh because we're like, we spend so much money on this stuff. But, I also have a 2013, car, and like it's paid off, and we prioritize these things. It's frustrating as it is, but it's like, that's what, I haven't found success for like the things that I need for my health when they take insurance. So I get it. I'm sure it's frustrating, and but there are options. And like you said, you have to, especially if you're struggling with something, there are other options, there are other ways. And it's just like, it should be more of a last resort instead of the first place that we go.
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. Well, thank you so much. Yeah. This was so good. I was so interesting. And thanks for educating us on all of this. I'll make sure to link all of your information for everybody listening in the show notes. Thanks again for coming on today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.